Mark. We're just going to cut to Trump now, who is speaking live. We're just going to cut to that right now.
Update on Operation
will shortly
Epic
be
Fury.
Successfully concluding
Today, the
his
United
official
States
visit
military
to
continues
India,
to carry out
from
large-scale
27th
combat
of February to
operations
2nd
in
of
Iran
March 2026.
to eliminate the grave
This was
threats
his first
posed to
visit to
America
India
by
since assuming
this
office,
terrible
and the
terrorist
first bilateral
regime.
visit by a Canadian Prime
Following
Minister
our
in 8 years.
obliteration of
The
Iran's
visit
nuclear
marks an
program
important
in
inflection
Operation
point in
Midnight
the
Hammer
India-Canada
a short while
relationship.
ago. We warned
Prime Minister
Iran not to make
Mark
any
Carney's
attempt to
visit
rebuild at a different
commenced with a
location
two-day
because
program in
they were
Mumbai.
unable to use the ones that we
The
so
Mumbai leg was
powerfully
primarily
blew up.
business-oriented and
But
aimed
they
at
ignored those
catalyzing
warnings
investment
and
flows,
refused to cease their
deepening
pursuit of
financial
nuclear
linkages,
weapons. In
and
addition,
expanding
the
innovation
regime's
partnerships
conventional
between the
ballistic
two
missile
countries.
program was growing rapidly and dramatically, capable of hitting Europe and our bases both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped. But everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike, what we're doing right now, and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is. We have the strongest and most powerful, by far, military in the world, and we will easily prevail. We're already substantially ahead of our time projections, but whatever the time is, it's okay. Whatever it takes, we will always And we have, right from the beginning, we projected 4 to 5 weeks. But we have capability to go far longer than that. We'll do it. Whatever somebody said today, they said, oh, well, if the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored. There's nothing boring about this. Do you agree with that, Pete? I don't think there's anything, Mr. General. I think there's nothing boring about it. Somebody actually said from the media, I think he'll get bored after about a week or two. No, we don't get bored. I never get bored. If I got bored, I wouldn't be standing here right now, I guarantee you that, to go through what I had to go through. We also projected 4 weeks to terminate the military leadership, and as you know, that was done in about an hour, so we're ahead of schedule there by a lot. But please join me in thanking every American service member who bravely is standing in harm's way. They really are incredible, and I just want to thank you. We have a lot of them right here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We have a lot of great service members here with us, too, in this beautiful building. Isn't it beautiful? We're adding on to the building a little bit. We're improving the building. See that nice drape? When that comes down, right now you see a very, very deep hole. But in about a year and a half from now, you're going to see a very, very beautiful building. And there's your entrance to it right there. In fact, it looks so nice, I think I'll save money on the doors, because it can't get more beautiful than that. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold, but I think we can save a lot of money. I just saved curtains. But, and it'll be spectacular. It'll be the most beautiful ballroom. I believe it, because I built many a ballroom. I believe it's going to be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world. And when you hear all that hammering out there, you know why the First Lady is not thrilled exactly. She said, will the pile drivers ever stop? You know, they go from 6 in the morning till 11:30 in the evening. Can you imagine? Here? You know what? To me, that's a beautiful sound. She doesn't like it. I love it. You know what? To me, other than here, because we're donating it, not a penny to the taxpayer. It'll be under budget, ahead of schedule. It'll be $400 million or less. Most people say $400 million or more. No, it'll be less. But when I hear that sound, that beautiful sound behind me, it means money, so I like it. But my wife isn't thrilled. She said, this is getting crazy. I said, don't worry about it. We'll be all finished up in a few months. But now, for the reason that we're gathered this morning, to recognize the unsurpassed courage of 3 really incredible American heroes, 1 living and 2 no longer with us. So together, we recognize the exceptional valor of Master Sergeant Roderick Edmonds. And maybe I could ask your families to stand, because they're beautiful families. I got to meet them, and please. So Staff Sergeant Michael Ollis and Command Sergeant Major Terry Richardson, as they receive our nation's highest military award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. And we're pleased to be joined by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. He's busy, very busy guy. In fact, I said, if you want, Pete, you can avoid it. General Raisin Kane also, and they said, we don't avoid this one. This is one you wouldn't avoid for anything, right? So we appreciate that you're here. Secretary of Veterans Affairs, who's doing an incredible job, Veterans Affairs, Doug Collins. Doug, thank you. You stand up, Doug. You're doing such a good job. 92% approval rating. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, who's known as Raisin Kane. I liked him when I heard that name, Raisin Kane. I said, if it's true, you're my guy. And it's true. It just turned out it's very true. He's a great guy and a great general. Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll, and Army Chief of Staff, Randy George. Thank you. Thank you both, Dan. As well as Senators Tom Cotton, Bill Hagerty, You guys were great on television this weekend, I'll tell you what. Can't have a better representative than both of you. Thank you very much. And Representatives Tim Burchett, Jack Bergman, and Nicole Maliotakis. And we have a few others sitting here, but I'm not going to go through it because we have far more important people to honor today. Oh, we have Tom Homan. I got to at least mention Tom Homan. I would be a stand-up, Tom. What a job. Zero people coming in. We had millions and millions of people pouring into our country now that, I mean, I'm not even sure I can believe this number is zero, but it is given out by Democrats, or Democrats from the last, and they're rated for the last 9 months. We had 0 people come illegally through our border. Right, Tom? So I want to thank you very much. And I also want to salute 6 former Medal of Honor recipients: William Swenson, Jim McLuhan, Walter Marm, Thomas Paine, Sammy Davis. That's an interesting guy. Where is Sammy Davis? We have a big story here, Sammy. You've heard that all your life, I'll bet, huh? And Edward Byers. Stand up, please. You all look good. We all look good. We remember the ceremonies. All great. It's a great honor. There's no greater. I tried for myself. I've tried numerous times to get one by myself. I keep getting shut down. They say, you can't do it, sir. Bad protocol. Very bad. I would say the worst. But I'm only kidding. You don't have to say I'm only kidding. Otherwise, the press will come out with it, which they actually did once. Donald Trump wants a Congressional Medal of Honor, but he's been shut down. But now you are brave, amazing people. And I want to thank you all. In 1941, Roddy Edmonds of Knoxville, Tennessee, enlisted in the U.S. Army and soon rose to one of the youngest master sergeants in the military. In 1944, he sailed to Europe to fight in World War II, and he was so enthusiastic and young and full of vim and vigor. Roddy soon found himself on the front lines of the Battle of the Bulge. That was a big one. Massively outnumbered by enemy forces, his 1,200 soldier unit fought valiantly until they were completely overrun. The force was massive on the other side, many times the number. After a 4-day death march, one that was covered very well by the history books, through bitter cold, they were put into a German POW camp. Roddy was the top-ranking infantryman in the camp. He was number 1, meaning he was responsible for the lives of his fellow service members. On July 26, 1945, a Nazi SS officer issued an order over the camp loudspeaker, loud and strong. He said that only American Jews were to show up to roll call following this morning. He added, all who disobey this order will be shot immediately. There were more than 200 Jewish American soldiers in the camp, and Roddy knew their separation from the group would mean certain death. So that night he summoned his team and devised a plan. The next morning, all 1,200 American men fell in line together, shoulder to shoulder. Enraged, the Nazi commandant rushed forward, drew his Luger pistol, and pressed the barrel between Sergeant Edmonds' eyes. He barked at Roddy. They cannot all be Jews, he screamed loud and again, and staring straight back into the raging face of evil. Sergeant Edmonds replied fearlessly, we are all Jews here. The Nazi officer lowered his weapon and the soldiers erupted in cheers. With total disregard for his own life, Roddy had saved over 200 of his fellow service members. Their camp was liberated 2 months later. We're honored to be joined today by Roddy's son, Chris. Please stand up as Thank you, Chris. Today your father gets the honor. He so courageously earned. And really amazing, right? It's an amazing story. Congratulations to the family of Master Sergeant Roddy Edmonds. The next two we recognize today served in the 1st Battalion, 28th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Infantry Division, better known as Big Red 1. Do you know about that, Pete, right? Command Sergeant Major Terry Richardson, we are honored to have you with us. On September 12, 1968, 102 brave men of Terry's Alpha Company were asked with securing Hill 222 deep behind the enemy's line in Vietnam. They didn't know it at the time, had no idea, but the area was totally infested with nearly 300 enemy bunkers and many, many enemy soldiers, far outnumbering them by at least 4, 5, even 6 to 1. As Terry led Lima platoon up Hill 222, the enemy launched an ambitious and violent attack, unleashing a withering fire of machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades. Just didn't stop, just kept coming. Pinned down in hell on earth, Terry summoned unimaginable courage. 3 times he exposed himself to enemy fire to rescue severely wounded comrades, and 3 times he dragged them back to the group. Terry soon realized that the 82 remaining men had one chance of survival, and that was air support. Acting without regard of his own life, he grabbed a radio and charged up Hill 222 alone. He needed to be there. It was the only place you'd get reception. He withstood a storm of enemy bullets, eventually reaching the top, where he spent the next 8 hours calling in tactical strikes, completely exposed. An hour in, an enemy sniper shot rang out and the bullet tore through his right leg violently. He was in bad shape, but Terry disregarded that and put.
We've just heard President Donald Trump there speak for his first time on the Iranian conflict going on. We're now just going to go to Malika again. Thank you for staying with us through the speech. We heard him say that this was our last best chance to strike, and that Iran with nuclear weapons would be intolerable to the US. What do you have to say about that? That it was the last best chance to strike?
Well, I don't agree. I do believe that Iran should not be a nuclear power. Definitely, it would be strategically a disadvantage for the free world. And Iran, the Islamic regime, is a brutal regime, and it definitely should not be armed with nuclear weapons. But that being said, as an Iranian, as a human rights activist, I am deeply concerned for the circumstances in Iran right now, for the people of Iran. And I personally don't believe that this a war, a foreign intervention in Iran was necessary to put an end to this regime. I personally believe that the people of Iran are more than capable to bring about changes within their own country by themselves, because there is an alternative to the current Islamic theocracy in Iran. There is an opposition movement with armed units within Iran, resistance units within Iran, and they've carried out attacks as well on Monday, actually, previously, prior to when Israeli and Americans struck down Khamenei. There was an attack carried out by Mujahideen al-Khalq, a resistance unit within Iran. About 250 armed men and women, quite many female combatants actually were involved in that strike. They did strike against the area and the headquarters of Khamenei, whereupon 100 or about that number were either killed or arrested, and 150 were brought back and went back safe to their homes and headquarters. So there is resistance units, there are armed resistance units within the Iranian Iran itself, and they would be able to bring about change in Iran. And I might remind you that the USSR was not brought down by external intervention, and either. And they were nuclear armed, and they too were a brutal regime, and so is the Islamic Republic. But the way for democracy forward, the pathway to democracy in Iran, for change within the region, does not go through an external war as the one we're seeing now.
Thank you, Malika. Please stay with us as we go through his speech. And we're now just being rejoined again by Mark Sutherland. Thank you, Mark, for again staying with us through Trump's speech. We've also heard that Trump has said that the US is substantially ahead of its time projections, say that they had 4 or 5 weeks of what they were planning to do, but now obviously they said that they had to have capability to go far longer. He adds that the country cannot continue to arm, fund and direct terrorist armies outside their borders. What would you say about that statement directly, that the country cannot continue to arm, fund and direct terrorist armies outside their borders?
You mean, Ellie, in regard to Iran, in regard to funding Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, etc.? Is that what you are referring to, Ellie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah. This is the issue. This is the ring of fire. We have to, when Tehran is then having issues with water, when the Persian people are asking and saying, why are you spending all this money in regard to backing terrorism and not addressing the people's needs within the country, that of course is an issue. And the other thing is that since last June, the Iranian regime have then rearmed ballistic missiles. They have then, whether that's through allies of China, they're allied with China, etc., where you are then seeing goods, other equipment then brought in. They have then sent equipment in to Hezbollah in South Lebanon, and then financially backing that. I just want to say, just politely, just address what very kindly what your guest has said in regard to resistance within Iran. I have to say that's the first time I have heard of that, and as long as that's not organizations like MEC, whereas turning around and said yes, we then want reform, where actually the people inside Iran are asking for a complete and utter regime change. And I will say this, Elliot, it's very, very easy for me sitting here to come out with comments, and especially when your dear guest is actually Iranian and will have links in there that I do not have. But I also am fully aware of the oppression and the ideology, and that there has been huge celebrations of the Iranian people that have left the country over a number of years, into the fact that the Ayatollah and various other members of that regime were then taken out very quickly. I think the other thing is, over many years, including going back to Obama, when there's turning around and having a negotiation, where the ideology says that people will say one thing out of the side of their mouth, but have another, but do something else. We do not want to see them spending any money anymore on pushing forward state terrorism. We would like to see a proper country. And for those of us that look at the history, we then remember what Iran was before 1979, before the Red-Green Axis got together to then overthrow the Shah. Ellie.
And as we were listening to his speech, he didn't say He didn't say much, but he also did at the same time. He brought up that Iran refused to cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons, and that they gave them so many opportunities to come back with a plan, to come back with negotiations, and they didn't. We obviously knew that there were talks going on, and Oman was in the middle of it, being the peace talks. Do you think now, after this speech from Trump, how do you think now Iran's gonna go forward with the conflict that's currently happening? And do you think anytime soon there will be a chance for diplomacy that Trump so keeps saying that he does still want?
You used the term peace deal. They were not at war. The whole discussion was about getting rid of any equipment in regard to being able to then head towards a nuclear bomb. That is what this is all about. And of course, in the cloud of discussion, one side will say one thing, one side will then say another. And we cannot forget, under negotiations that President Obama then put forward, and then giving Iran, the Iranian regime, billions and billions of dollars, hoping that they would then spend that on the economy and the people, the Persian people inside Iran. Sadly, that may have then not have taken place, because they have then piled that into all their proxies within the region. I think at the end of the day, as Donald Trump and the administration have said, we have tried to talk. There was going to be more talks in Geneva, but looking back, it's how the regime then delays that and then says one thing and then does another. And of course, I don't have to tell you, it's very interesting when your guest makes a reference in regard to Russia. That needs another long 2-hour discussion about how we got to the point of President Reagan saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down the wall, in the fact that Gorbachev under Perestroika was then moving to then loosen up and liberate the USSR. But that is another discussion. The issue is this. Is, as you pointed out, diplomacy. That's what people will then say, oh, is it going to be 4 or 5 weeks? Frankly, I want this to be over as soon as possible, and I want the people of Iran to be free and take control of their country, so that they can then take that forward without the oppression that they are then suffering now. What we have to understand politely within the West is that we then think we can negotiate with people that believe in the same that we do within Western values, and sadly they do not. And that is a harsh lesson constantly. But there is so much history here yet again to go through, Ellie. But this is what we have to bear in mind. And we also have to bear in mind, again, I say politely, the ideology and the countries that they then threaten. And this is also what is at stake as well. And of course, the last thing any of us want to do is to see war. But sometimes you have to make those very difficult decisions and be the strong man to say, no, we are not putting up with this anymore. Ellie.
Thank you, Mark. Please don't go anywhere, as I'll be back with you very shortly. We just have some more breaking news coming in right now. Qatar's Ministry of Defense has announced that the country's armed forces have successfully shot down 2